This is Keep Up. I'm your host, Cynthia Dill, and joining me today is Larry Benoit. I'm in my Cape Elizabeth studio. Larry is satellite in from California, and we're going to talk first tonight. Oops, I got to get my music off. First, we're going to talk about what's happening in town. Maybe you've seen some people around Cape Elizabeth with clipboards wondering what's going on, and I'm going to tell you what's going on. And then Larry is going to give us an update on the school bond and his recent proposal. It's some exciting news, I think. There's been maybe a little bit of break in the ice. We'll see. So a lot happened on Monday, February 10th. Today's the 12th. Monday night, there was the town council meeting, the regular town council meeting. And at the regular town council meeting, on the agenda was both the public hearing and the vote on some proposed town center zoning ordinance amendments. Pursuant to the Cape Elizabeth Town Charter, anyone who has a contract to buy land in the town can request an amendment to the zoning ordinance, and that is by way of the town council, who also, pursuant to the charter, must refer the matter to the planning board for its recommendation. And then the planning board has to have a public hearing and then send its recommendation back to the town council, and the town council, theoretically is going to vote. And so Monday night, that's what the purpose of the item was, is to vote on the amendments. But the issue is that the developer, Hardy Pond Development Company, a reputable local, developer of real estate and housing, has a really good reputation, has personal relationships with people in town. Hardy Pond Development Company requested an amendment to the zoning ordinance that would enable the development of Center Court, which is a 55-plus housing project that would be on the town green. And what they needed by way of amendment was three main things: to eliminate the requirement for commercial activity on the first floor for housing a structure that is at least 200 feet from the road, which in this case, there's only one of those, that's this one. And it's right across from the town green. So 200 feet away from the road, with a density of 1 unit per 2,000 square feet, as opposed to what it currently is, which is 1 unit per 3,000 square feet. And they asked for a height increase. Currently, the height restriction in the town center is 35 feet. And what Hardy Pond requested for this Center Court project was height of to allow a 4-story building up to 49 feet. So that was the request. It went to the planning board, and what the planning board did, instead of just making a recommendation on what was requested, altered the zoning amendment to allow for these types of housing projects 135 feet away from the road, which makes it feasible for 6 of them. 5-story building and density of 1 unit per 1,500 square feet. So it's radically different proposal that was before the town council, and it was radically different than what was requested by the developer. So Monday night, in a 5-2 vote, unfortunately, the town council majority voted for what the planning board recommended, which were these, kind of souped up amendments, not what Hardy Pond requested, that would allow for 6 5-story apartment buildings in town. Despite Councillor Anderson and Councillor Thompson making the motion to just approve what was requested, the vote was 5-2. So immediately, a referendum petition began, again, pursuant to the charter. The citizens of Cape Elizabeth have the right, within 20 days after enactment and passage of an ordinance amendment, if 10% of the citizens sign a petition, the town council must have a public hearing and send it out to a referendum. So right now, if you're seeing people with clipboards, what they're doing is they're collecting signatures to send to referendum the town center zoning amendments that the planning board came up with that would enable these 6 buildings, at least 6. And we're hopeful that the requisite number of signatures will be collected and the matter will go out to the public. But most importantly for me, I'm hopeful that maybe some of this pressure will get to some of the councilors so that we can come up with a majority to just pass this and get this real estate project, because all of the stakeholders in town are on board for this project. And what separates the town is this idea that we're going to do multiple buildings. So I signed the petition. I'm not organizing the effort, but I know who is. And the petition simply says, we, the undersigned citizens, registered voters, want to put this matter that was just voted on Monday night out to the citizens. So fingers crossed that Penny Jordan, who's the chair of the town council, has the power to call a special meeting as long as she gives 48 hours notice. That's in the rules. She can call a special meeting. And if there's 4 counselors there, that would constitute a quorum, and it would constitute enough people to vote to reconsider. Penny was on the majority vote. They could reconsider, and we could actually get what we want, but that's what's going on. So if you're interested in the petitions, they're around town. They're at the IGA. We have 20 days, and and right on the horizon on March 10th, there's going to be another public hearing on even more expansive zoning amendments that are proposed by the planning board that also, I think, are going to cause a lot of upheaval. It's unfortunate because we have a bird in hand in this Hardy Pond project on the town green. It's a reputable company. It's going to do a top rate market. The project is 33 units of market rate housing on the town green with covered parking. And the units would consist of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, I believe. It could be condos, we're not sure, but no public subsidy is required. And like I said, I mean, everyone's in. No one's going to be the face of killing this project, but unfortunately, the planning board, in my view, just tremendous overreach added on to what the developer requested, the very issues that were the subject of the referendum on Dunham Court that we voted down. So deja vu all over again. But speaking of deja vu all over again and what happened Monday night in Cape Elizabeth, let's turn now to Larry. I'd love, if you have anything to say about the zoning amendments, Larry, please do. But if you want to just sort of tell us where you were Monday night and why, and we'll get that conversation started about the school issue.
Okay, very good, Cynthia. Well, thanks for inviting me to join your podcast today. Just a little bit of background. There are a lot of people in our community that have been dismayed and disappointed that the school board had not decided to bring in citizen participation to help look at new alternatives for our schools. Instead, the school board chose to pursue a single regurgitation, a repackaging of the rejected middle school proposal that the voters turned down last fall. And this is twice this has happened. The earlier plan included a new middle school, so it's been twice rejected, but they decided, unfortunately, to move ahead without any further consideration for alternatives. And I might add, that's in contrast to what other communities are doing after school projects have been defeated. Specifically, our neighbor Scarborough reconstituted a school building advisory committee that's come up with 7 new options. And by the way, Harriman is the architect on that project. And they're examining those, and they're now beginning to pare them down, and hopefully for their purposes, they'll come up with a viable plan. So as the school board proceeded with a project that was going to be a fait accompli and is moving very, very quickly, some saying to get this on the ballot on June 10th. Whether that actually happens is in doubt now. But in any case, they're moving very rapidly, rushing through here. And there was a hearing just on Tuesday on that repackaged plan. As this process unfolded, Mike Hussey and I, as former members of SBAC, we actually spoke to other members too about our intention to proceed to come up with an alternate plan to hopefully stimulate interest in looking at other alternatives, not just the one that we have proposed, because there may be some alternate plans that would work even better. But to just simply proceed here with a repackaged plan, I think disrespects the will of the voters and disregards, I think, the need for community participation. So we offered this plan this week, Cynthia, and we believe it's a very good solution that's cost effective, and it is going to result in a $64 million bond, almost $20 million, more than $20 million less than the repackaged middle ground plan. And I can describe a lot of its features. I believe the plan now is
Let
available.
me, Larry, before
Yeah.
we get into the details of the plan, for
Yes.
anybody just sort of catching up on the politics, you've been around the block, so to speak, when it comes to politics. You worked for George Mitchell. You worked chief of staff for Congressman Baldacci. You have run state, national campaigns, were the sergeant at arms in the United States Senate. So you know how political deals get done. And you know that there are some people who just get in the way of deals and are flies in the ointment to either draw attention to themselves. Some people say there's show horses and workhorses. What do you say to the people who say, like, who are these guys? You know, they just come in here and they think we're just going to, go along with some idea that they cooked up. Why are you in position to put forth a serious proposal? Why should we take it seriously?
Yeah. Well, I think that our participation in SBAC was an important process, and we spent hundreds of hours working with the architect and the OPM to develop a set of alternative plans for various options. And through that process, a huge amount of information was developed and considered by the committee. And the role of a committee is to not be a rubber stamp for your consultants. The role of the committee is to ask tough questions, demand excellency, demand that facts and information are verified and complete. And that requires a lot of effort and work. If you want to just be a rubber stamp, you might as well just turn the process over to the consultants and walk away. But that's not the approach that we took to it. I can speak for myself and Mike in particular and others. And we've examined all of these options very, very carefully. And through that experience and through other experiences that I've had in my career and Mike has had in his career, I've worked, as you indicated, in the area of governance, in the area of elections throughout my whole career. And I also was a consultant for very large scale projects when I was a government relations consultant at Bernstein Shore, including billion-dollar projects that we assisted Central Maine Power with. And these were upgrades to their system, smart meters, and so forth. And through that whole process, I've learned something. And it appeared to us that this community desperately needs to come to some type of a fair and honest compromise here, that we can get moving here to take care of the problems with our schools. And there's a lot of tension and conflict here. And it's, in our view, time to take another look at some alternatives rather than trying to push through for the third time a plan that's been twice rejected.
So let's just talk about that for a minute. Why do you think this new proposal is so similar to the one we just rejected? I look at it and it's a brand new middle school, just like the one we rejected, and it doesn't address the needs of the high school or the elementary school, which are the concerns that people had last time. So what do you think the goal is? Just to beat people down, wear us down, or that we don't know enough? Who could possibly be advising them to put out what was just put out and failed?
I wish I knew the answer to that question, Cynthia. And as you just said, we effectively are setting in place almost an entire new middle school. This proposal has a brand new 6th, 7th, and 8th grade wing, 36,000 square feet of new space.
You're talking about your proposal.
Yes,
Yeah, I
our
really like
proposal.
it.
Yeah, the three school plan, as we call the three school solution, as we call it, and it builds an incredible amount of space, but not a brand new full size middle school. And we also add new cafeteria for the elementary school and the middle school, a new entrance for the elementary school, which is secure and provides administrative space, and a beautiful new repurposed cafetorium into a state-of-the-art performing arts center. Those are
Why
just a number of the features of this proposal.
how is it? I mean, if for again, just playing the devil's advocate, if People are thinking, geez, that sounds a little too good to be true. All that, and it's $20 million less than
Yes,
what the school board is proposing. How is it that you saved $20 million? Like, where was that $20 million going to go for the school board project?
right. Well, it's just a more efficient way to use money. The approach has been on our part that we don't need to build an entire new school. We can replace and build new additions, and this is what this project does. And then we take care of all of the essential and critical needs for all three schools. One of the most glaring and unfortunate parts of the school board's new repackaged project is there's essentially no funding in it for the high school. There's $11 million of essential and critical repairs that Harriman had identified for the high school that should be done over 0 to 6 years. But there's no money for that. All of those items have been moved into the so-called capital improvement program for the school system, but that's not money. That's just a wish list that has to individually be funded in an annual budget. And if that's going
So
to
it's
happen,
the taxpayers are going to pay it.
yeah, absolutely, and they'll be paying for long-term, repairs such as new roofs, HVAC equipment. These are all very costly, long-lasting units with money that's coming out of a single budget. And the fact of the matter is, the school budget is going to be under enormous pressure going forward. There's a new collective bargaining agreement. There are questions as to whether there's going to be a reduction in the school subsidy coming to Cape Elizabeth because of the change in revaluation. I think the board is waiting to get more details on that. And there's no guarantee there'll be any money there to fund this. Right now, it's nothing more than a wish list. And every parent who has a kid going into high school should realize that this proposal has no funds for the high school built into it.
Why do you care so much, Larry, about this? I mean, you could just be relaxing in the glory of your illustrious career, surrounded by your beautiful family, not paying attention. Why does it about this that really gets you? You've put in 300 hours on this new proposal. What's driving you?
Well, I'll tell you, Cynthia, one factor was that when we started the process with the School Building Advisory Committee, I didn't think there were really any really significant problems with the high school. And I learned a lot, as we all did. And we discovered that no, there are very significant issues that need to be addressed. I mean, Harriman identified $36 million between the middle, the elementary school, and the high school of essential and critical repairs that they said should be done over the next 0 to 6 years. And I've always taken the view that if we're going to address these problems, we need to address them now. We can't be, putting this off down the road and providing no funding for the high school at this point, and also significantly reduce funding for the elementary school also compared to the defeated project that the voters rejected last fall.
I
So
watched I watched the public forum the other night, and a woman asked that specific question. She couldn't recall the exact figure, but she was essentially asking. There was a number associated with critical needs. Is this middle ground proposal, the regurgitated one from the school board? She asked, are they going to be covered? And I thought the answer was yes. You're saying that they're not going to be covered by the school board's proposed project?
no, the bond will not include money for the high school, or a very tiny amount. It's a little hard because the goalposts have moved a number of times. But in order to get the cost down to where it is, and it's still very high at 87.5 million, they had to take out those projects out of the bond, put those projects into the CIP. And again, the CIP is merely a list of
Yeah.
projects that you would like to do, and you have to take items, put them in the annual school budget, and fund them. But that's not going to happen automatically. This school board cannot obligate a future school board to do anything with discretionary spending. It can lay out a plan and make a lot of promises, but that doesn't mean the money is going to be there. The responsible thing to do is to take care of these issues now, fund them with the bond so that they're done for both the elementary school and the high school.
And I'm still confused about the school board proposal to raise money, like we're fun with the kids are going to have bake sales. Their plan describes, I think, $20 million of privately funded money. Is that amount above and beyond what their bond amount is, which is like the 86 or whatever you said it was million?
I just saw that plan for the first time, Cynthia, at the public hearing. Um, my view is this: it's very difficult to raise money for secondary and elementary schools. It's done sometimes, and I'm all for it. If the town can receive private donations in large amounts or small amounts, we should apply it in three ways. One, if their project were to go through, that it would be used to reduce the tax impacts, and it would take care of the needs of the high school and the elementary school. And likewise, we would apply the money with our plan or some alternative. As I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be what we propose. We think they should be looking at a number of alternatives, but in the same case, to lower the tax burden.
What
That
I
I
liked
think
about
is,
Well, what I liked about your plan and the design, is it utilizes the existing space, like you said, but then connects. Well, like the complaint by one of the mothers at the forum the other night is that when she went into the school, she couldn't find the music room, and therefore we should build a brand new middle school. But I think she was wandering around those long halls, and your plan kind of connects the two, with the new classroom space. It's really, I don't know, it makes a lot of sense to me. But what struck me as a little odd, watching the forum, was it appeared that Harriman, the representative, sort of threatened you with some sort of legal action for using the information that the taxpayers of Cape Elizabeth has spent, like, what, $2 million on. So can you respond? Have you? I didn't get a chance to research whether or not there'd be a cause of action that you might be concerned with. Are you concerned?
I'm not. I was surprised, but the town has paid for this work. The only drawing that we used that apparently is at issue is just a simple schematic drawing of the school campus, and we used that just to add in the sections that we proposed for this project. The three-story um, expansion is part of the original option D. It was a Harriman project. Now, we did increase the size of that space so each floor could accommodate a full class, including ancillary, allied arts, and so forth. And that's what we did. And I was very surprised by that. I mean, after all, we were asked, the public was asked to comment on the proposal that Harriman developed for the school board. We did that. We simply used publicly available material that the taxpayers have already paid for and exercised our First Amendment right to take and get fair use out of that material so that we could describe this alternative.
And what do you hope is gonna happen next? You've submitted the 3 school, is it called the 3 school solution? Yeah, 3 school solution.
Yes.
And, I'd like you at some point to tell viewers where they can access it, to see it. Where can you go and look at it?
Well, it should be, if it isn't already, on capevoters.com.
Okay. And, what do you hope happens next? So you sent it to the school board, and I understand from what you forwarded to me, some of the public communication that has transpired since the public forum. And it appears that the chair of the school board is receptive to at least, um, acknowledging receipt of it. What else do you hope that the school board does with your very, intriguing proposal?
Well, the chairman, Philip Saucier, did respond to our proposal and letter to the school board and the town council and indicated that the school board would ask Harriman to review the project. Now, we have requested a essential meeting with Harriman representatives to go over the details of this proposal. And keeping in mind what we provided is conceptual. There are many details, and I'm sure Harriman will have a lot of questions. In order to get a fair and objective review where Harriman is well informed, would require this meeting. Otherwise, I wouldn't expect anything much to come of it.
Why d so, do you think that it has to be a recommendation by Harriman to get out of the gate and be considered a serious proposal?
No, not necessarily. I think what we need is just to have a review done and we go over the costs, the elements to the project, look to see if everything, is well covered. And then, it needs to then potentially be considered by the school board. We'll have to see what Harriman, has to say about those questions, but we feel very confident. For example, our school construction cost is $700 a square foot. That's what Harriman is using, a little less than that actually, for the current middle school plan. And all the other numbers are roughly based on information that we received over the whole course of SBAC's work on the projects.
Well, how would you get it to the voters, Larry? I mean, what's the path to actually, this happening? It would have to be, I mean, for what I'm wondering is, since I'm spending so much time reading the charter and how to repeal and overturn ordinances, there also is a provision in the charter that says 10% of the registered voters can petition the enactment of an ordinance. I don't know if that includes a bond referendum. I mean, are you thinking, or is there any talk about doing like a positive sort of referendum campaign to get this out there? Or are you hoping it might go through the normal course, which would be, as you said, I guess, the school board taking it up, voting for it, sending it to the town council, and then getting it out? It just seems like almost impossible for me to conceive that the school board would do that.
Well, we can only hope. It's really the only way it can happen. Again, the community has to come together and try to find a solution that can get a substantial majority of voters to support a plan. We had two public opinion surveys done when SBAC was in operation, and both showed that the voters would not support a plan that had a tax increase of 10% or greater. This proposal at $64 million would raise taxes approximately 8.9%. The new regurgitated school board plan would raise taxes about 11.9%. That's only a 0.6% decrease in the actual tax impacts of that project. And the reason that's the case is twofold. One, we're having inflation affect costs, and two, it's also affecting long-term interest rates. Interest rates have gone up substantially since the project was analyzed last summer, and it was placed on the ballot by the town council with the warrant. At that time, a much lower interest rate was used. Today, it's 4% a market rate, and that's what we calculated these numbers on for both our proposal and the repackaged middle ground plan.
Now, a lot has happened since the last time, namely, the Trump administration has blown into town. And in its shock and awe opening, the Department of Education is in the crosshairs. Uh, that, along with the tariffs on steel and some of these other, elements that are used in construction, is that going to just throw more, confusion into the equation?
I believe so. I think that we're entering a period of uncertainty, of economic instability with unknown consequences. Um, I'm, as far as all these tariffs are concerned, these costs are always passed on to consumers. They ultimately pay for these. These are really just like an ad valorem tax that you end up paying, and so the cost of a lot of materials will go up. That's inevitable. And there's theories behind high tariffs, but I believe that they are very faulty today in the modern world economy, and it's just going to have very negative impact on Maine. And we have so many uncertainties about what will happen with the Department of Education, with other programs that provide state assistance. It's a kind of a primary and secondary impact. There's going to be potentially major cuts in programs that come to the state, like Medicaid, for example. And what that means is it's going to affect other budget items. You could see cuts even in school subsidies, for example. We could see a reduction in municipal revenue sharing. There are all kinds of permutations to this. And my point being that there's a lot of questions, a lot of instability, of which I think no one really knows the answers yet.
What is it about the regurgitated school board proposal that you think is wrong? Like, what's wrong with it other than the cost? I mean, the cost is clearly a concern because, as you've said, it goes above and beyond what the taxpayers have said twice in elections and surveys they're willing to pay, above the 10%. But other than that, what else is wrong with the proposal? What don't you like about it?
Well, again, it takes all of the original estimate for critical and essential repairs out of the bond that would be needed for the high school. Presently, that's around $11 million. And then there were millions taken out of also the elementary school. Again, that is not a three school solution. That's a one school solution that takes from Peter to pay Paul. That's probably one of my biggest objections. The second is we need to find a cost point that is cost effective and can be supported by a substantial majority of taxpayers. And it's clear that if we have a plan yet again that's greater than 10% tax increase, that it's likely to be rejected. And for those reasons, I'm opposed to this approach. If we could do all of this for less than 10% tax increase, I'd probably support it. But one other thing that's, I think, very important is that we have a substantial investment in our current campus. In 1994, we did a very large expansion. I think it was around 58,000 square feet, about a little close to 25,000 square feet as part of the middle school. That includes the library, the art room, the administrative room. That's only 30 years old. Tearing that down is a terrible waste of taxpayer investment. It's fully paid for. It's only halfway through its lifespan. It's really foolhardy. And also, there's going to be an environmental impact, tearing it down, landfilling it, and so forth. And finally, we have a full-size high school gymnasium that's in good condition, and only modest investments are needed in the existing middle school gymnasium to bring it up to contemporary standards. It's a quality built structure, and it'd be a shame to tear it down. Those are among my major concerns about this approach.
Why do you think the bond, the regurgitated school board proposal, why do you think it's not going to go out to a referendum in June? Hinted that it might not be in June. Why do you think it might not be in June?
I don't think the school board has done the necessary preparation and work to be able to move this thing forward on June 10th. It would be wrong, first of all, to schedule it on that date because there would be a low turnout election where a tiny minority of voters could decide the outcome of a major tax increase and the acquisition of upwards to $87 million in debt. That's just simply wrong. It is really a extremely poor idea. And the reason why is that if only a tiny minority were to approve it, it would leave a lot of taxpayers wondering what has happened here? How could this possibly occur? And we would end up with the schools suffering from this. It would result in a reduction in support for annual school budgets, for example. And we don't want that. That happened in Scarborough, and they've gone through years of anguish and difficulty trying to resolve the problems with their schools. And that's something I hope would never happen in Cape Elizabeth, but it could. And this process is not helping.
Well, the other thing that's happened since last time is not only the Trump administration blowing through town, but the report cards came back on Maine students, and the fourth graders apparently are really struggling to read and do math. And I think that's at top of mind for a lot of parents in town too. Not only the stress and anxiety about the uncertainty in the economy and inflation and the winds, howling political winds, but this idea that somehow the kids aren't being taught. And I'm still really I'm unclear what it is a 21st century education is when they talk about it in the context of this new school building, that we have to do this in order to create 21st education space. Can you comment on that? Is your plan going to be able to accomplish this so-called 21st century learning?
Well, as far as the space needs for programming, yes, no question. There's plenty of room. I mean, remember, we're adding 53,000 square feet of space. There would be 3 levels for grades 6, 7, and 8. The existing 5th grade wing would be retained, and there would be a very compact section of the middle school. The rest would be retained, although you clearly wouldn't need all the space that remains. There would have to be decisions made as to what sections to ultimately demolish and free up open space. For example, what would be the use of the 1934 building? One of the key things about our plan is it preserves that, and it preserves the electric power, the heat, and water that it needs in order to be repurposed, and the town can make a decision about that. It could possibly remain as part of the middle school, and it could also provide space for the district staff. There's another section, what I call the west wing, which connects the gymnasium to the 1934 building. That's one of the older sections. It had some portions added in 1994. In other words, we have a lot of space there, and we won't need all of it, and decisions can be made what is needed, what isn't, and we can accommodate all of these 21st century needs for sure.
So are you hopeful that the next step might be for you to have this meeting with Harriman?
Yes, we hope. All I can say is I hope that it can happen. If it doesn't, I don't think there can be a fair review of the process. That when you provide a conceptual plan, you can't provide all the details, and it's going to require a sit down to go over each of the key components of this, and to verify the cost estimates, and to look at how some of the space would be configured. I don't think it would take a lot of effort to do that, but it would have to be a sincere one, an honest one, to take a genuine look at this proposal. And by the way, I would encourage, and I have strongly encouraged the school board to open up this process and bring in the public. Bring in the public to participate in a way that was done with SBAC. Maybe there's some other form of input that can be offered, but we need to take a look at alternatives. This one is one potentially of several that ought to be considered, and they need to be cost effective. They need to be at a price point that the voters will support. And again, the survey showed less than 10% tax increase.
Well, Larry, I hope you keep us posted. Thanks so much for joining the show. And I guess again, for viewers who want to know more, please just remind us where we can go and look at the 3-school solution that you and Michael Hussey have drafted up, spent a lot of time on, and it looks really intriguing.
Yep, it should, if it isn't already, posted on capevoters.com. I haven't checked the website myself, but it will be on there very shortly if it isn't already.
Just one last thing, though, Larry. It just occurred to me that I didn't ask you about. Do you have, are there candidates that can be elected to the school board? Because we haven't had a competitive school board race around here, and we seem to be stuck in the mud on this school issue. And it seems to me one thing that could shake things up is if we got some people on the school board who might take a different look. Do you see is there anyone knocking on your door saying we'd like to carry this forward to November and run?
I haven't heard of anybody. I just haven't really focused on that, Cynthia. I've really placed all the time that I have to devote to the schools on monitoring this process and helping Mike Hussey to develop this plan. This has taken a large amount of time. This is a very complex set of data that we're working with, and we've been very careful to be thorough and to be objective. And we taken what was originally the option B, and we said the school board has rejected that, we're going to have to move on, and we have. And this is a very different proposal. Anyone who thinks this is some type of a option B repackaging, it's not. It's very, very different.
I think some people might say, though, that they're so tired of the public paying for this exercise that to now have Harriman review private citizens' proposals could be a slippery slope that we're going down, and we're just never going to get ourselves out. So, I mean, what do you say to that? Like, why isn't this a waste of money to have architects review a proposal that's been submitted by private citizens?
Well, it's a valid concern, Cynthia, but we need to get this right. We don't want to have a plan rush through that yet fails again and fails to address the critical needs of the high school and all of the priority needs of the elementary school. And if it requires, the expenditure of a couple $100,000 more to look at alternatives, then I think it would be more than well worth it to do that. Unfortunately, what's in the past in terms of cost has been sunk, and there's just nothing that can be done other than a lot of good information has come out of both the processes with Colby Simons and with Harriman that inform our effort going forward.
Well, Larry Benoit, thank you again for coming back on the show. I hope you'll return.
Very good. Well, thanks for the invitation again, Cynthia. Happy to join you.
All right. Take care. Good night.
Yeah, good night.
Good night, everybody.